All right, welcome to Saturday Night Protection Live with your host, Christopher Nelson, the director and lead teacher of Protect Your Children Incorporated, protectyourchildren.org, protectyourchildren.org, and also protectfrompredators.org, another great website, protectfrompredators.org. Of course, it goes to the same place, but it's only between you and me. Yes, protectfrompredators.org and protectyourchildren.org. Got a couple people in the chat already, Marie T and Rising on Eagle's Wings, and a host of people watching on Twitter and Rumble as well. We're glad that you are here tonight. Saturday Night Protection Live. Let me jump in with something real quick and just remind us of something. What do we got here? What do we have here? What is this? This is something we've talked about a lot of times. The pedophile, I can't say that on YouTube. The PDF file Predators Plan. Yes, the PDF file Predators Plan. They desensitize the kids. They demoralize the kids. They hypersexualize the kids. And then they attack the kids. That's how it's done. Desensitize, demoralize, hypersexualize, and then attack. Otherwise known as grooming. Yes, okay? So let's just keep that in mind as we look over a lot of the stuff that we're going to do tonight. So on tonight's show, Bryden, welcome to the chat. Glad that you're here. On tonight's show, we have a high school principal. Yep, just when you thought it was going to stop, once the principal found out, right? We're so committed to the safety of our students, and we're going to do everything we can to keep our kids safe. Well, yeah, it's not working too well since we've had over 100 teachers arrested already in this current school year for acts with their students. Now we have a principal that was arrested not only for alleged acts, but for keeping it quiet and allegedly knowing what was going on and not telling anybody. Now, why would a high school principal, do that? Well, we gather that it's something to do with providing the ground for the predators, providing a place for them to operate and groom and desensitize and demoralize and hypersexualize the children. But that's just what our guess is. We also have a substitute school teacher down here in Florida on job 3 days. That's right. He only made it 3 days and then now has been arrested for alleged acts with a couple of different students. Yep, 3 days. Substitute teacher. And, the schools wanted to make us aware that, all substitutes and teachers go through a strict background check to make sure that they have no criminal charges. Well, that's fantastic. But the stats are that 88% of predators have not been caught yet. So what are they doing to find them is the question. Well, not much of anything, if you ask us. Not much of anything. Unbelievable. Bryden makes a great point. There were over 400 arrested last year alone in just the news, not counting the ones that didn't get the publicity. Yeah, that was last year. And there's already been 100 this year. No, it's not getting worse. We're just hearing about it more, right? I mean, this has always been happening. We just didn't know about it. That's what they tell us. Well, that's a bunch of hogwash because it is getting quite worse. And parents need to start waking up and realizing what's going on here because these predators have infiltrated the school system. And as we're starting to see, it's not just the teachers. Now we've got principals involved in this stuff, allegedly. And we also know that the Board of Education, Department of Education, they're all not doing anything. They're not doing anything to stop this. And we also know from the books that have been in the school libraries with explicit content put into the child's section next to the comic books, by accident, of course. We wouldn't put an adult sexually explicit book next to comic books. I mean, why would we do that? We don't want the kids to find it, do we? Yes, you do, actually. And we know that the librarians apparently have to approve every book that gets put in their library. So we have librarians that are approving books with adult sexual content to be put in their libraries for elementary, middle school, and high school students to find. Now, would that fall under that hypersexualizing thing? Maybe the desensitizing thing? The demoralizing thing we were talking about just a minute ago? Absolutely, it does. It's crazy. Now, I want to ask you guys about something else that's coming up tonight. Do you remember this? What is this? Oh, yeah. What is this? Oh, the Super NES, man, right? Who remembers some good times with the Super NES? Man, I remember playing for hours and hours just trying to beat Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, 3. Man, we're going to beat them all. We were playing Jungle Book. I mean, we were playing everything on this thing, man. And it was just awesome, right? Well, guess what? We've got a problem because now there's a Super Nintendo. Well, it's a fake, but it's something that's for sale. And wait till you see what has happened to the games. If I told you, you wouldn't believe me. And we're going to bring that up in just a little bit. Yeah, we got a problem. We have a problem. Houston, we have a problem with the so-called new Super Nintendo and their games. What they have put into those games will absolutely disgust you. And it's targeted right to children. Oh, yes. We have to target the children. Yeah. Why do we have to target the children for? Well, you know exactly why. And it goes back to the plan. The PDF file predators plan. Desensitize, demoralize, hypersexualize, and then attack. That's exactly what is happening right before our eyes. And it's happening all over the darn place. And it's time for parents and other caring people to wake up and realize that their kids are going to a haven, a PDF file haven called the public school system. They have to realize it because I'll tell you what, it's getting really, really bad. It's getting really bad. So, anyway, that's what we're going over tonight. Action-packed, informative show tonight. All right. ProtectYourChildren.org is our website, ProtectYourChildren.org. In-depth protection packet. Oh, yes. Tired of hearing about this guy talking about this in-depth protection packet. Guess what? That's because it's important. This in-depth protection packet is a packet of protection guidelines detailed, right, that will help you identify PDF files online and in the community. It contains warnings for parents, warnings for kids, lookouts for parents and kids, personality profiles of PDF files. Wow, say that's a mouthful. Oh, how to keep your kids safe online. A whole lot of great other information. Just go to our website, protectyourchildren.org, click on the in-depth protection packet, and you can view it, download it, print it, save it, share it, meditate on it, go over it with your kids. It's very, very important information. Protectyourchildren.org, in-depth protection packet. All our live shows are also hosted on our website, protectyourchildren.org, in case you forgot the name of it. Live shows are there as well. And a whole bunch of other stuff, including how you can help donate to this nonprofit and the work that we do. Other topical child protection videos. We do free background checks. We did one actually just this past week for somebody who was trying to adopt a child. And they had to make sure that they were clear and that their other half was clear. And yes, they were. Very good news. So listen, we're willing to help out wherever we can with that. Free background checks, zip code predator searches for arrested predators, and so much more on our website, protectyourchildren.org. All right. Wow, I'll tell you, Tracy, servant of Christ, good to see you in the chat. Bryden's in the chat. Marie T is in the chat. Rising on Eagle's Wings. Everybody, thank you for joining us tonight. We're just so glad that you're here. We also have a bunch of people watching on X. We're thankful for that, and YouTube, Rumble as well. You know, something interesting with X, just a side note here. Protect Your Children has lost 113 followers in the last week. And when that happens to a small organization like us, I mean, we were over 1,000 followers on X, and all of a sudden we're down to like 900. And the first thing you think of is, what? What did we do? What did we do wrong? Did we post something bad? Like, what happened? And then we did a little research on the Googles, on the internets, on the interwebs, and found out that a whole lot of people are leaving X, politically related reasons. And basically, all that told us is that there's 113 people that no longer care about protecting kids. That's just what it means to us. We've gained some of them back today. Gained about 15 back, I think, since last night. So, but in any case, just a side note on that. All right. So let's get rolling here. We're going to jump into our Hero Kids segment for tonight. Every week, we bring you a story about hero kids that have made a tremendous difference, being selfless, helping people's, in the community, helping save lives, rescuing people, just doing awesome things that kids do. And I want to tell you something. There's a lot of great kids out there, man. Kids that have a great purpose. They have a good heart. They're not selfish. They're out there trying to help people and make a difference. And we know that PDF files plan is to destroy these kids, to get at them through their phones, through their school system, through the school library, through movies, through music, through the community, and destroy their lives. And that stops them from doing the good work that they are created to do. And we don't ever want to forget how precious and awesome kids are. So every week we bring you a couple of minutes of a hero segment to highlight how awesome these kids are. So let's check this out. We'll be back in about a minute and a half. Let's check this out. It's very awesome.
Well, 5 teenage boys are being hailed as heroes after a day of sledding nearly turned tragic in New Jersey. The teens rushed to save 2 children from an icy pond and worked together to get them out. CBS 2's Kieran Dillon has more.
As snow piled up and excitement ran high, 8-year-old Olivia Hyde and her 4-year-old brother RJ hopped onto their sled for the first time ever. But little did they know what was about to happen next.
Oh my God, this could have been a catastrophic situation.
The family was sledding here at the Beacon Hill Country Club in Atlantic Highlands, New Jersey on Thursday. The kids having a great time until their sled lost control.
They were continuing, getting more momentum. I realized right there, like, holy crap, they're going down to that water.
You could see in their faces that they knew something bad was about to happen.
The sled steering right into this icy pond.
It was like freezing. Our faces were in shock. RJ was like really cold.
5 teens nearby heard the commotion. They then jumped into action.
Me and Joey first saw him. I think we were both thinking, should we like jump in front of the raft? Yeah. Should we try to stop it? And we couldn't. It was going way too fast.
Instead, 14-year-old Kieran Foley hopped into the water, rescuing little RJ first, then Olivia next, handing each off one by one to his friends to form a human chain rescue.
We definitely had to do something. We can't just sit there and watch.
The boys got the kids to safety and are now being heralded as heroes in the community, a title they don't accept.
Honestly, I feel like I didn't do much. And we hope that anybody would do that. It
just
happened to be us there.
The Hyde family disagrees.
What they did was like just amazing.
Adults wouldn't do things like that,
It was awesome to see little kids do that.
These parents say the teens didn't hesitate for a moment to help their kids and thus deserve all the recognition in the world. In Middletown, New Jersey, Kieran Dillon, CBS 2 News.
Wow. Incredible. Absolutely amazing, right? This is what we're talking about, man. No, we don't consider ourselves heroes. I mean, who wouldn't else? Who else wouldn't go in there and save these kids? Who else wouldn't jump into icy cold water, not knowing how deep it is or anything, and rescue these 2 little kids, they say? Well, unfortunately, many people would have just turned the other way, or maybe pulled out their phones and recorded it and put it on social media for a bunch of likes and retweets. But no, these great kids, all 5 of them, saw there was a problem, jumped in, and saved these 2 kids' lives. And for that, they are definitely heroes. So that's our hero segment for tonight. Awesome. All right, let's talk about this substitute school teacher, man. This guy, man. We're going to point out something here. Like, a lot of these teachers are young, and this might be feeding into the problem. I mean, part of the problem, but I mean, look at this guy. What doesn't look like Mama's boy right there, huh? Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mama's boy right here. But this guy, man, he substitute school teacher. He's on the job 3 days. 3 days, and he's already arrested for alleged sexual activity with these students. This comes to us from Law and Crime. And, we always appreciate Law and Crime letting us use their content. Of course, we leave all their ads in there and we give them the credit. Maybe that's why we haven't gotten copyrighted, but we're very thankful. They do a fantastic job. Bryden also has mentioned how they've used their content, and Law and Crime does a great job exposing this stuff. So let's jump into this, and we'll be stopping for commentary.
This man spent only 3 days substitute teaching at a Florida high school, and somehow in that time still managed to allegedly have sex with a student at the school. When investigators started looking into this tip, they realized this teacher was already under investigation in a nearby county for an alleged relationship with a different student. I'm Sierra Gillespie, and this is Law and Crime News. It's a disturbing story we're digging into today out of Hillsborough County, Florida. That's where 39-year-old Joseph Prevet worked as a substitute teacher for a few days this fall. Between October 1st and 3rd, he subbed at Leonard High School in Ruskin, Florida. According to the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office, investigators found inappropriate messages between Prevet and a student. Through the investigation, they also learned that Prevet allegedly engaged in sexual interactions with a student at the school. The Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office didn't specify what exactly those sexual interactions were, but they were enough to warrant a charge for Prevet. On November 18th, he was arrested and charged with harmful explicit communication to a minor, lewd or lascivious battery. So basically, he was allegedly sexting an underage student and had some sort of sex with them at the school. But during the investigation for this allegation, officials in Hillsborough County learned this wasn't the first time Prevet was accused of sexual assault, specifically of a student. He'd also worked at Manatee County High School as a substitute teacher. That's only about 25 miles away from Leonard High. According to Manatee County investigators, Prevet also sent inappropriate messages with a student there. He allegedly spoke with his victim for several weeks on Instagram and even included a picture of himself. In the pic, he wasn't wearing any clothes, but he cropped it to exclude his genitalia. All this came to light on October 31st, when the Manatee County Sheriff's Office received a tip through Fortify FL. This is a really cool website in Florida. It's used to report suspicious activity to both law enforcement and school officials. Now, after this tip came in, Prevet was charged with soliciting or engaging in lewd conduct with a student. He was booked into the Manatee County Jail on November 12th, but released on $75,000 bond. It was a week later when he was arrested and booked in Hillsborough County, and this time he's being held without bond. So there's a lot happening in this case. We've got to bring in former prosecutor and civil sex abuse attorney John Clune. Thank you so much for coming on with us today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's good to be here.
So what jumped out to me?
All right, let me jump in real quick here and just point out that Leonard High School is in Ruskin, Florida. That is about 30 minutes right from this microphone right here. Yes, right here. About 30 minutes away, Hillsborough County in Florida. And that's pretty crazy because it's like local, right? A lot of times you hear about these stories and they're so far away, but this is local. And this guy, substitute teacher, assuming there was a background check done, but of course it's not going to show anything because the guy's never been caught before, and something has to get done about that, obviously. Look at this. This is what they were talking about, Fortify FL. This is a great way to anonymously submit tips online. Suspicious activity reporting app for Florida. It's a reporting tool that allows you to instantly relay information to appropriate law enforcement agencies and school officials. It's available in an app and also on the computer at fortifyfl.com, fortifyfl.com. Very awesome. What a great way for people to report stuff. And that's what you got to do. If you see something, you got to say something. If you end up being wrong, then great. But if you end up being right, you may save a child's life. Really, like legitimately. So it's really important that that people speak up when they see something, especially with this kind of crazy stuff happening. So, all right, let's jump back in.
me right away about this case is that we have a substitute teacher who was only there for 3 days. 3 days only, and still managed to have sex with one of the students, allegedly. What do you make of that right from the jump?
I mean, it's incredibly bold. I mean, most child sex offenders, there's a grooming period over, days, weeks, whatever, to be able to kind of break down some of those barriers for the kiddos, and for somebody to be able to move at this kind of speed with one of the students is pretty alarming.
Yeah, you mentioned grooming. That's something we talk about because, unfortunately, on Law and Crime, I've covered stories like this, honestly, dozens of times. It's something that we see a lot. And throughout it all, we see a lot of grooming. A teacher who knew the student for months, maybe even years, met with them after school. So they kind of build this relationship before they take it to the next level, so to speak. But in this case, how was he able to do all of this without grooming?
Well, it's a great question. There must have been some grooming on some level, even if it was accelerated. But it'd be really interesting to see the police reports on this one because it's an unusual fact pattern. I mean, the texting is a problem. I think that some of the offenders can, get access to kids, like have meetings outside of school because of these kind of secret, text messages. So that I'm sure helped in the facilitation of the crime. But it would be really interesting to hear the details of this because it's just an unusual amount of speed to be able to get sexual access to a kid like that.
You know what? They're confused about this. They're saying, well, there must have been some kind of grooming going on because there's no way, however old the victim was, would just automatically start messing around with this substitute teacher. You know what? Yeah, they would. And do you know why? Well, I thought you'd never ask. Let's go back to the PDF file predator's plan. You're going to hear a lot about this tonight. Once you have a generation of kids, okay, 14, 15, 16, 17 years old, high school, even younger today, that have been desensitized to things of a sexual nature, they've been demoralized so they don't think it's wrong anymore. They've been hypersexualized or they've been viewing porn and all sorts of other illicit stuff, right? And they're going over it in their heads. They're imagining it. They're almost wanting to do stuff. And then you get something like this substitute school teacher, easy for me to say, who comes around looking all like he's looking, hey, look at me. I'm all hot. I'm sending you, pictures of my muscles and all this other stuff. And you're beautiful and you're this and you're that. It doesn't take a lot, unfortunately, for kids to be groomed like in an instant with this. But remember, you're dealing with a generation of kids that have been exposed to so much sexual content and everything that it's like, we're not blaming the kids here, but you got to think about what's happening. When kids are looking for sex, and there's a lot, the amount of teenagers that are online visiting porn websites will just blow your mind. Kids are super hypersexualized now. And it doesn't take much for someone to come in there and just sweep them off their feet like this evil guy did. And that's something that people got to realize, okay? And I want to share something with you real quick. So I'm watching a movie with my niece, okay? This was about a week ago, 11 years old. And she says, I want to watch Snow Queen, right? I'm like, oh gosh, here we go. Parents, you're feeling me out there, okay? Aunts, uncles, you got to watch the kids' movie. All right, so we're going to watch Snow Queen, Very well done, visibly. Just, good movie, right? Well, not necessarily. I realized first, and then she realized that the main character in the movie centers around this young girl, and this young girl had what initially looked like symbols around the cuff of her boots that she was wearing. And then when you look at it closely, it says 69, 69, 69 all around the boot, okay? The cuff of the boot, 69. You all know what that is out there, okay? Yeah, sexual position. That's in a kid's movie. And then there's another part where they bring on this other actor. It's an animated movie. Bring on this other lady. She's supposed to be a mean lady. And when they first bring her on the screen, now remember, this is a movie for kids, okay? The camera has her kind of with her hands down and she's looking into the camera like she's talking to the other girl off screen there. And she's got on this low cut top with these ginormous breasts, very sexually provocative. And the camera makes sure it focuses on that a lot during this movie. Right? And it didn't go past the brain and the eyes of my 11-year-old niece because she said something about it. She's like, what? Why is there 6'9" on the cuff of her boots? And I'm like, oh boy, here we go. I mean, this is what they're doing. They're putting it into everything. This girl's 11, okay? And they're seeing it and they're hearing it at school and they're being sexualized from a very young age. So by the time they get into high school, it's like they're very easily groomed. I mean, like lightning fast. So that's just something to keep in mind. It may look like an innocent kids movie, but the stuff that they're slipping in there, if you're looking for it, you'll see it.
Talking about texting or messaging, Instagram specifically was mentioned in one of the cases that he had slid into the DMs, was DMing with one of the students. To me, that sounds like a red flag right away. If your teacher is handing out his Instagram handle or his cell phone number, is that something that parents should keep an eye on? I mean, your child should not have your teacher's contact info.
Yeah, so this needs to be addressed from both ends, from both the parents and the school's side of this. I mean, there's no situation where a teacher should be messaging with a student unless there are some apps that schools use that are on a platform where the schools have access to all the messages. Maybe it's for like sports, coordinating, games, trips, that kind of thing. But other than that, there should never be this kind of messaging with students. So the schools need to emphasize it. But more importantly, if somebody's a sex offender in their school, they're not going to follow the policy. So the parents really need to teach this to the kids that there really cannot be any kind of messaging with a teacher. Any teacher that's messaging a kid outside of school, for anything other than what I just previously described, should be a red flag to kids that something's up.
Obviously, these messages are super inappropriate that are happening after school between the teacher and the student. But also one of the allegations is that he actually had sex with a student at the school, which to me is incredibly brazen. I mean, people could walk in. Obviously, there's security cameras. What do you make of him deciding to go through with this illegal act right on school campus?
Yeah, I mean, we have to be careful not to convict him yet because he hasn't been found guilty. But I will say that we see this on campus sexual abuse happen pretty. I wouldn't say regularly, but regularly enough with people who have done this many times before. So usually, somebody who is starting off their career as a sex offender is looking for more discreet opportunities. And probably more prolonged grooming periods before they engage in that behavior. So that if somebody did this in such a short fashion on campus, that's at least a signal that there may be, a significant history of abuse.
You're good to remind us that obviously these are just allegations at this point. He has not been convicted of any crime, which kind of leads into my next question about his defense. If we have some of these messages, on one instance, we have a photo of him. How is that something that he's going to combat in court?
It's going to be very difficult. Text messages these days, DMs, any kind of social media messages, they are making life very difficult for defense attorneys. I don't have a lot of sympathy for it, but I think that these messages can be very damning unless there's some way to explain the context of the messaging, which I can't imagine what that would be in this particular case, given what's been reported and the photo. It's going to be a very, very difficult thing. One of the things that the main job for a defense attorney in this situation may be to figure out what is the best plea bargain that can be arranged for my client versus how do I convince a jury that he actually didn't do it. Or, you can have, there's two different charges in this case, and one of them is about the messaging, and the other one is about the actual sexual contact. depending on what he actually says in these messages, there may be a defense of, well, I did the messaging, and that was wrong, but I didn't do the actual sexual contact.
So let's talk about the message, because obviously this can be tracked down to his phone number and his username. We can determine that it is him. However, in one of the photos, we know that he took a pic of himself. It was inappropriate, but he had cropped it in a way so that he wasn't showing any of his genitalia, anything, obviously inappropriate. We have sexual undertones, but he wasn't showing anything illegal, so to speak. Is that something his defense would point out?
They will. It's an interesting, from a legal standpoint, it's going to be an interesting question. Like the fact that you blur out things like genitalia, is that a defense to the lewd photograph communication? I don't.
No, it's not a defense to it, because it's all an attempt to tempt the child, all right, to entice the child. That's what this is. Even if this sub teacher, he's got, he's shirtless and he crops out this, how do they know he was fully naked, even though he cropped out the genitalia? I don't know. But the reality is that if he's shirtless and he's sending it to a minor, there's only one thing to assume there. And our point of view, he's trying to entice that minor, okay? Trying to get them to want to see more. So there is no defense for that. Ridiculous.
I don't know the answer to that. It's going to be that's an interesting issue that I haven't seen before. I could see the prosecution say just because it's blurred doesn't mean he didn't commit the crime.
Another interesting aspect of this case is that it happened in multiple different counties. So in Hillsborough County, when they started investigating this, they found out that to the county just south of them, in Manatee County, he had already been charged with a similar crime. This gets into prior bad acts. And I'm wondering if this is something that either county, when it goes to court, can mention, hey, he's also charged in the next county over for something that's kind of similar.
Yes.
No, they'll certainly try. There's a provision specifically for this in the rules of evidence. And so they'll have to litigate that in front of the judge in advance of the trial of whether or not they get to use that other act. If it is, similar and goes to a particular issue in the case that's not just to prove that he's a bad guy, then there's a good chance that they would be able to use it in trial.
Do you think that this shows some sort of pattern, the fact that he has these allegations from two different high schools in separate counties?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and that's why the prosecution will want to try to use it in their case, as it does show a pattern of behavior. But what you're not allowed to do is say, well, he did it in this other situation, so that means it's more likely that he did it in our situation as the prosecutor. But there are a number of reasons why you can use it, and that pattern can be extremely persuasive for a jury. It's also one of the reasons why the judges have to be very circumspect about whether they let in or not, because it is such persuasive evidence to a jury that it better be admitted for a good reason, or it could be an appeal issue.
That's a good point. It would probably show a pattern, so it'll be interesting to see whether it will be allowed in either of the courts. My next question is, it seems, at least based on these two allegations, we keep going around the word pattern, that he has a pattern or history of this. Is it possible now that additional students come forward and say, okay, yeah, he also was communicating with me, and make additional allegations?
Yep.
Yeah, we definitely see that happen a lot in these types of cases. And one thing that you have to keep in mind is that, most survivors of sexual abuse never disclose their abuse. It's incredibly embarrassing. They feel tremendous shame. And so even though this is coming to light now, a lot of kids still may be reluctant to come forward because of those reasons. But that said, it's not uncommon that you get if you have somebody who's a serial offender, which most child offenders are serial offenders, you get other students to come forward, particularly once you have two. If it's just one, it seems like who's going to be the next one? But when you have two, and then maybe three, then people feel a little bit more comfort, like there's a safety in numbers about coming forward. So it wouldn't surprise me, not only if people come forward, but if the law enforcement starts talking to schools about looking for other potential victims.
What's interesting about both these allegations is that they are child sex crimes. At least, they were students at both of the schools under age 18, so they're kids. I actually looked at this defendant's profile on social media, and he has kids of his own. So if he is convicted of these crimes, or one at least, and he has to register as a sex offender, does that make things more difficult? I mean, he's around children in that he has 2 kids of his own.
Yeah, and so that raises a couple of issues. One of them is, social services is going to, like in the interim, like now, be looking at, I'm sure as a bond condition is no contact with children. The judge will have to decide whether or not that includes his own children. We do see some crossover behavior from people who offend on other children and also offending on their children. So that's something that both the court and the social services is going to be concerned with. But as he, if he ends up with a conviction and whether he goes to prison or gets probation and on parole, has some sort of sex offender treatment, he's going to have to kind of earn his way into, being able to parent again safely with those kids.
Talking about bond and conditions, the first time that he was arrested and charged, he was released on $75,000 bond. But then, as we know, he was arrested and charged again with a similar crime, and now he has no bond. Do you think that that was the correct decision?
I mean, I think that, at least for now, it's a good decision. Committing a new sex offense while you're on bond for a sex offense is a massive red flag to the court. If there is a way that the court can feel like they are safely monitoring this individual while still protecting the community, they'll want to explore that as an option. But at least as an initial measure, I think that is the right decision.
Things like this are always really tough to talk about. But John, thank you for coming on and kind of explaining it a bit more to us.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
Anyone with more information about Joseph Prevett's allegations or any survivors are asked to contact the Hillsborough or Manatee County Sheriff's Offices. Reporting for Law and Crime, I'm Sierra Gillespie.
This guy was 39 years old. 39 years old. Allegedly going after, we don't even know the age, high school, so 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old. That's something that's similar with the other teachers, all the female teachers that have been arrested for alleged behavior. They're all in their mid to upper 20s, and they're going after kids as young as 11, 12, 13 years old. There's definitely a connection with these substitute teachers and these regular teachers that are younger, going after younger people. There's something really twisted going on. And it's hard to explain what it is. It's definitely an evil. It's a sexual deviant behavior that is just permeating our schools and our communities. And as we bring you these programs, not only every Saturday night 8 p.m., but on our social media, over the last couple of years, it's just every area. We've seen police chiefs, we've seen janitors for schools, we've seen school teachers, we've seen community leaders. We saw a mayor that was arrested for the same thing. I mean, Boys and Girls Clubs, the Boy Scouts of America, we know about that. The Catholic Church and the priests, the situation with that. We know about Hollywood. What is happening? I mean, I can't imagine being a child in today's world where they're just trying to pursue their dreams, get an education, and go on to do the things that they love to do. And they're having to navigate all the sexual content and all these predators that are popping up everywhere these kids go. And we're telling you, the only solution to this is education. You've got to have these conversations with your kids. Not just, hey, if anybody touches you in a way that makes you feel uncomfortable, let me know. Okay, that's the tip of the iceberg. But let's go deeper. Talk to your kids about good talk, bad talk. Adults doing sexual joking with them, okay? Anybody older than them trying to show them pornography, all right? All of these things are all flags. And like they said, if there is no reason, zero reason a teacher should be communicating with a child outside of school-approved devices and apps, okay? If teachers are giving kids their social media and saying, hey, find me on social media and we can talk privately, just slide into my DMs, red flag, we got a problem. Because the teachers know I'm sure they're told us when they come on that, hey, communication is strictly within our systems so that it's monitored and it's safe. So if a teacher deliberately goes outside that school monitored system to contact your child, that is a huge red flag. There is absolutely no reason for that to be taking place. And parents, you've got to check your kids' phones. They could have been texting already or messaging, calling teachers from their school, and you'd see that on their phone. They may be communicating with teachers from the school over their video games. Are you monitoring who they're talking to while they're live streaming and they're talking to these complete strangers? I mean, parents, you've got to step up. And guardians, it's out of control. But that guy was 39 years old, allegedly going after 14, 15, 16, or 17-year-olds. Man. Unbelievable. Got a lot of stuff going on in the chat here. Yeah, the Brittany Zamora case. We're familiar with that, Andy. And a lot of people joined in the chat. Flurg, Bryden, Andy, glad you're here. Marie T's in there. Tracy, servant of Christ. Yep, she's in there. A lot of people. We're glad that you're all here tonight. This is Saturday Night Protection Live with your host, Christopher Gelson, director and lead teacher of Protect Your Children Incorporated. We are a not-for-profit organization based in Tampa, Florida, Hillsborough County. And we come to you every week, 8 p.m., Saturday night. And all throughout the week on our social medias. You can find all the links to our social medias on our website, protectyourchildren.org, protectyourchildren.org. If the education and awareness that we're bringing has helped you, has made you more aware, has educated you, then, and you're appreciative of it, then please let us know. Whether you drop us a comment, drop us a message, say, hey, thank you. You can make a donation on our website to help us further the work that we do. Let us know. Yeah, it's good to know that we're reaching people, making a difference. And we're very thankful for that in advance, as well as for the podcast listeners. A lot of listeners end up listening to us on the podcast about 15 minutes after the show ends. And we're thankful for you out there for listening every week, going out, searching out the podcast and listening and leaving us your comments. We're very thankful for you as well. All right. So let's get into this Super NES story. This is going to just blow your mind. Look at this. Nostalgia time. Nostalgia. Yep. Super Mario Brothers, man. Woo! Played that thing for hours. Beat every single one of them, by the way, on the Super Nintendo. I beat Super Mario Brothers 1, 2, 3. Beat them all. What a great time it was with this system, right? Especially on rainy and snowy and cold days. Yeah, man, me and my friends would sit in there and play for hours, And, it was kind of safe because it wasn't connected to no internets and we weren't playing with absolute strangers. We were just playing the game with each other and we were working together to beat the boards and beat the game. And we couldn't wait to get the new one. Innocent fun back in those days. Well, guess what? Now we have this little product. All right. This product is available for Christmas. Yay. Targeted to the kids. Yay. And it's kind of like a Super NES. It's trying to claim to be. But wait till you see what we're going to call it Company X. Not Twitter, but Company X, because there is no manufacturer listed on the box of this little gaming system here. And wait till you see what they have done. We do know it comes from China, like 90% of everything else we got. But let's check this out. And you're not going to believe what they've done to the games that me and you used to love when we were kids. Let's check this out.
It seems like a normal gaming system, but it's far from it. The Super Mini SN02 preloaded with 800 games looks nearly identical to the original Nintendo SNES. Even the packaging is nearly a perfect copy, but it's not created by, sold by, or affiliated with Nintendo in any way.
It looks exactly like a miniature version of the old Super Nintendo.
Taylor Turley's 5-year-old son was gifted the console for Christmas, and she was ready to share some gaming nostalgia with him.
I was raised in the 90s. A lot of these games are very familiar with me. I honestly wanted to play the game before I gave it to him.
But she quickly realized some of the preloaded games included offensive or racist language and pornographic material, like this image of what appears to be 2 naked children in a tent.
Okay, let's just stop right there. How you like that? I don't remember that being on the Super NES when I was younger. Yeah, let's insert this in there. 2 naked young people looking at porn. Are they trying to hypersexualize the kids, desensitize them, demoralize them with technology? Oh, you better believe it.
The book there labeled porn, and one with a sexually explicit character that looks like Ronald McDonald, along with an email account.
You can only imagine the type of person that's posting their email on pedophilic games.
She says she...
All right, in case you didn't see that, it was Ronald McDonald with a little surprise number over his private parts. And the words, let me see if I can back that up and read what this says. Hold on, let's back this up a little bit here. Let's go. Yeah. Oh, look at this at Hotmail. Look at this. Ronald was showing off his magic bag at a picnic in the meadow when all of a sudden, and it stops there. And look at the 18 with the line through it. So, nope, no 18 plus here. And then what do we got? Email me at a freaking email address to find out what happened next. This is in the revised Super NES game system.
Email account.
You can only imagine the type of person that's posting their email on pedophilic games.
She says she was also shocked to find a game with racist characters.
There's another game that is supposed to be like Mario 2, I believe. And it's called Black Man 2 once you get into the game. And I don't know how to describe it. It's pretty racist.
The gaming system, which doesn't list a manufacturer on the box, but says it's made in China, is sold by multiple third parties on major retailers like Walmart or Amazon. And we found it being sold in person at an electronics store in Corona, Queens, displayed right here on a table outside the store, along with what appears to be a knockoff Nintendo Switch. Here is the loading screen, and we see Luigi here, like a cartoon version of Luigi, very familiar. Looks like a fun game so far. Everything looks pretty normal. But as we kept scrolling, we're deep into the games now. It's 111 is the number of games that we've gotten to get to this screen. And on the same page, we have Mickey Mouse 3, which sounds like a game. Sure, you let your kids play that. That's fine. But on the same page, we have one that sounds much more explicit and questionable. And then as we hit play, we were even more shocked. Okay, right off the bat, that's not the Mowgli I remember. It would just be a normal game if it weren't for Mowgli being naked. We've reached out to Disney for comment on this, but have not heard back.
I was fuming.
Kyla Knight has been trying to warn other parents about the system on TikTok and tells us she bought it for her kid when it was listed here as a bestseller on Amazon.
My husband went ahead and bought it. It was like, hey, this is only $50. We're going to go ahead and get this.
After Kyla reached out to Amazon, the company told her they were investigating. And in a statement to NBC News, said the product was, quote, investigated and removed. But as of today, it's now listed on the site by another third-party seller. Walmart also telling NBC News the game will be removed because it does not comply with our prohibited products policy. But we found one that appears to be the same system by a third-party seller today. The online posts selling the systems do not mention anything about inappropriate content. They even receive some 5-star reviews.
If you go into the descriptions of these consoles, they are marketed to children. They're marketed to give to your friends' children.
However, now Kyla and Taylor joining dozens of other customers, leaving reviews to warn other parents and to get the word out.
That's all I wanted to do with this whole topic was just make sure that parents knew what could potentially be on presents that they're buying for their kids.
My warning would just be to make sure that you go through the console yourself and test out these games. Even if you're not interested in playing it, just be aware of what your child is taking in all accounts.
All right, Stephen Romo joins us now live here on Top Story. So, Stephen, I mean, this is pretty eye-opening, and it's incredible how much it looks like the old Super Nintendo. How hard was it to get to the games that were inappropriate? I mean, could any kid find them? And you found things that were even sicker than what we saw in your story, correct?
Yeah, stuff we could not include in the story, definitely on this game. That's one of the weird things about it, though, is if a parent gives this to their child, they might look through it for a while and not find anything. But after scrolling just a few pages down, all of a sudden you see some strange titles that seem racist. The games themselves are actually pretty normal, but then you get to the one like we saw, the Jungle Book version. There is a normal version of the Jungle Book as well, but then for inexplicable reasons, there's this sexually explicit version in there. And there are some totally good games, some nostalgic games. I played the Star Trek game. That was actually pretty fun for a while. That's why I don't understand the reason that this product would actually have that. It'd be good to get a response from the manufacturer, but there's actually not one listed on the box. So
yeah, some sick puppies out there, and we thank you and the Top Story team for finding this out so we can let parents know.
Not sure what to even say. Well, I mean, it's not even like questionable anymore, right? What is happening? No manufacturer listed. They market it to kids at Christmas time. So it's going to get out to tons of kids. And they slip in there all the sexual content. I mean, Mowgli running around naked. A naked man running around on the screen. Why would they do that? Well, I don't know. Maybe to desensitize, demoralize, and hypersexualize the kids. Putting racist stuff in there. That one game, it has to do with chasing down a black man. And then Amazon and Walmart saying, "Oh, we've removed it." No, you haven't. Obviously, you're not trying. And this is really nothing new. I mean, this stuff's been going on. How many of you guys remember this little gem from a year or so ago? Remember this? This was the Troll doll. Hasbro put this out a couple of years back. And remember, this was a doll that was all cute, and you'd press its belly button and it would laugh and stuff. And a parent went to toss this to her husband so he can just check it out. Like, oh, there's this cute little doll. And he missed it. And when it landed on the ground, it all of a sudden made these erotic noises. And you can find the videos online. The mother picks it up and starts looking around the doll, and they find this hidden button in between the little doll's legs. Now, this was a doll for 5 to 7-year-old girls. And when you press that button, she would make all these little noises. Nothing on the packaging about hidden button in between the legs. Nope. Now, the outrage on this was huge, and they pulled it off the shelves. But how many little girls got this and were playing with it in their rooms and playing with their friends? And when they found that button in between the legs and they pressed it and she made all these little noises and sounds, how many of the girls mimicked that behavior? You see what's happening here? There is a pattern and a history of these sick pedophilic predators that are working at these companies, slipping this crap into these toys, into the games, to get it in front of the children, to further hypersexualize them and prepare them to be abused by predators. It's exactly what's going on. It's out of control. So, yep, can't even get a Super NES fake now without it including all of that sick, predatory stuff. Thank you for those of us who joined us late on Rumble, on X, YouTube, Facebook links are out there. Appreciate you guys in the chat. Man, it's crazy. We're going to run a little bit late tonight, probably about 15 minutes. We usually wrap up around 9. So thanks for sticking with us. We're going to get into our main content now. Yeah, you think that will always our main content. No, we've got to talk about this principal. School principal. Yep. Just when you thought it would stop. Just remind everybody joining late, you can join us every Saturday, 8 p.m. for Saturday Night Protection Live, 8 p.m. Eastern. Live on Rumble, X, and YouTube. You can find the podcasts on our Facebook pages, as well as Rumble and X and YouTube as well. About 15 minutes after the show ends. Please watch, like, subscribe, share, so you can stay informed of all this crazy stuff that is happening that's putting our kids in danger. We have to stay ahead of these people. And right now, they are moving so quick. These predators are just moving so quick. But as the stuff comes out, we're going to bring it to you, and it's up to you to continue to share it and get the information out there. And we thank you in advance for the passion that you have to protect our kids and their futures. All right, let's look at this freaking principal. Oh my gosh. Woo, let's just jump right in. Law and Crime Sidebar with Jesse Weber. Fantastic job. Again, we're thankful for letting them use our, we can use their content. No copyright strikes, so we're thankful for that. But let's jump into this principal and see what's going on here.
St. Helens High School principal Katie Wagner was arrested this morning. And the irony of this is that if she hadn't written this letter, this never would have happened.
Viral TikTok videos from a former high school student sparked a bombshell investigation that ultimately led to the arrest of alleged predator teachers. And now, the principal of that high school is facing felony charges for reportedly turning a blind eye to it all. I'm going to talk with renowned predator catcher Chris Hansen as we dive into this latest development in the story. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber. All right, we have to talk about the fact that a principal of an Oregon high school has just been indicted by a grand jury after being accused of failing to protect her students from alleged predators. We're talking about Katie Wagner, the principal of St. Helens High School, now facing multiple criminal charges stemming from her alleged role in allowing the abuse to continue essentially unchecked, even after school officials were made aware of the allegations. Now, if you say this, why does this sound familiar? It's because we first told you about this story here on Sidebar just a couple of weeks ago. 2 former teachers at the school were arrested. 46-year-old Eric Stearns, 64-year-old Mark Collins. They were arrested for allegedly sexually abusing students. And it was all sparked by a series of TikTok videos that were uploaded by a former St. Helens High School student, Doug Weaver.
I made a video about some of my experiences at this high school 20 years ago. And I talked about how this school has a history of protecting predators. And when that happened, I had so many people send me messages about this guy. And I'm a mandated reporter. If you tell me about the abuse of a minor, I'm going to report it. So I did. And the next day, I got a call back from Detectives Edwards and Smith. And they asked me not to post about Stearns until they finished their investigation.
And then soon after, Weaver got an influx of messages pointing the finger at Stearns and Collins, who were both arrested after a major investigation. On November 12th, both Stearns and Collins were arrested on multiple charges of sexual abuse. Stearns was charged with abusing 6 girls between 2015 and 2024. Collins is accused of abusing 3 students from 2017 to 2023. And in Doug Weaver's TikTok videos, he actually revealed that the principal we're talking about, Katie Wagner, criticized him for bringing up what she referred to as past issues regarding these 2 teachers. And remember, this was before they were arrested.
When I made that first video, the principal of this high school criticized me for revisiting past issues that have been addressed. But clearly, the predatory behavior of teachers at this school district has not been addressed. And she said that they take the safety of students very seriously and investigate all allegations brought to their attention. I don't believe that, because I have reason to believe that a lot of these allegations had been brought to her attention and that she did not investigate them.
And it turns out, from what we know in this recent indictment, Weaver might be right. Wagner's indictment, which was filed last week, alleges that Wagner's actions, or maybe I should say lack thereof, created a situation where vulnerable students were at risk of sexual harm, a violation of her duty as an educator and administrator. And the charges against Wagner allege she, quote, unlawfully and knowingly withheld necessary and adequate physical care from her students by failing to report the abuse. And that is required by Oregon state law. Now, the indictment also states that she, quote, consciously disregarded the fact that the violation created a risk of the commission of a sex crime against a vulnerable person. Hey, so I want to quickly thank Upside for sponsoring this episode of Sidebar. They help us to bring this story to you. And here's the kicker. They still have a special Black Friday promotion going on. And Upside's great if you don't know what it is. It's a free app that gets you cash back on daily essentials like gas, groceries, food. So when I pump my gas or I go to lunch, I can use the free Upside app to potentially get cash back. Real cash back, money that appears in your Upside app that you can transfer right into your bank account. So once you have the Upside app, you claim an offer for whatever you're buying on Upside. You pay as usual using a debit or credit card. You follow the steps on the app and you get paid. And you can use Upside at all different kinds of places, convenience stores, restaurants, gas stations. Here's the Black Friday kicker I mentioned. If you download Upside right now by clicking the link in the description and use code BF10, you get a $10 bonus on your first purchase. This is a Black Friday special, one time only. $10 cashback bonus on your first purchase with our special code BF10. Okay, but back to this. So right now, Wagner is charged with 2 felony counts of first-degree criminal mischief, 2 misdemeanor counts of official misconduct in the first degree, and 2 additional misdemeanor charges of official misconduct in the second degree. She entered a not guilty plea last week after she turned herself in. Her bail was set at $55,000, and as part of her release conditions, she's not allowed to have any contact with Stearns and Collins. And she also can't have any contact with the alleged victims in this case or their families. By the way, she's also not allowed to be employed in an education setting or any sort of job where she's required to be a mandatory reporter. She's due back in court in January. There's a lot to break down here. And to do that, I want to bring back in friend of the show, renowned predator catcher Chris Hansen, host of Takedown on True Blue and Predators I've Caught with Chris Hansen. Chris, so good to see you again. Before we get started, you actually anticipated my first question to you. Have you ever seen a principal being held criminally responsible?
No, I have not. But I also have never seen a principal who let this slide for so many years, despite the complaints, categorizing this as past incidents. I mean, come on. These were verifiable complaints, and it didn't get acted upon until, some of the victims and the parents started squawking on social media, on TikTok. Law enforcement, when it found out, seems to have proceeded diligently and done the right thing. But where was this principal? This is a job where you are entrusted with the safety and security of all of the students. And if you know and refer to this as past incidents, come on. I think this is a landmark case. I think it's exactly what the authorities in Oregon should have done. And it will set an example and get people's attention to never let this happen again. But the fact that I've never seen this before, this sort of prosecution, also speaks to the fact that I've never seen a case like this where a principal let this slide for so long. So that's just as surprising, or as unique, rather, as the prosecution itself.
This might be the first time I've seen criminal charges against a principal like this. Not the first time that I've seen a school district being held responsible. Yes. And it makes me wonder, what could be the explanation? Why? Taking the allegations is true. Why would she not report it? I didn't think it was happening. I was trying to protect maybe the alleged predators here. What explanations would make sense?
To me, what makes sense is complacency. I don't see any evidence here that there was a conspiracy with the teachers facing these allegations, or there was any kind of a cabal that involved the principal. What I do think could have happened is that these 2 teachers had been engaging in this behavior for a decade and maybe had a way of intimidating the principal, who might have been younger than them, might have been able to convince her that, these are bad actors. These students are just trying to get us. Something happened there. But I don't see, a conspiracy where she was actively taking part in the sexual exploitation of students.
All right. You know what? He's being very generous with that, Chris Hansen, isn't he? He does a lot of great work. But if you know that something has taken place, as she called them, prior bad acts, and you believe that somebody cannot be rehabilitated, then you have a right and a responsibility to bring that up and to expose this. To stay quiet, and again, unless they had something on her, threats, I don't know. But if you know something's going on and you don't say anything, you are complicit. Silence is guilty. That's just the bottom line. And he's being real nice with, giving her the benefit of the doubt here, but I'm not seeing it. I don't care what the heck is going on. If I'm a principal of a school and I know this, I'm saying something, because the longer she stayed quiet, the more kids get harmed. you got to make a choice here. Is it going to be the kids or yourself? Maybe this was a situation of, well, I don't want to lose my career. I don't want to make the whole school look bad. All that does not matter. You have a responsibility to ensure the safety of these children. That's it. It's just shocking. Marie made a point in the chat about in Oregon, it's legal to walk around exposing yourself. We had not heard that. And oh my gosh, look at this. Oregon law generally allows people to walk around naked in public as long as they don't intend to arouse themselves or others sexually. What if just the basic fact of walking around naked arouses somebody? What do you have to do to intentionally try to arouse them? It says, however, there are some circumstances where exposing oneself in public can be considered indecent exposure and result in criminal charges. Okay, exposing one's genitals or breasts in public with the intent to arouse or sexual desire. How the heck are you going to prove that? And I'm sorry, if someone's walking around in public where kids are going to see them, how do you know what's in their head? Well, at least you can't perform sexual intercourse or deviant sexual intercourse in public. Well, thank you, Oregon, for that. But I'm sure this isn't helping the situation. Good God. Thanks, Marie, for that great point. All right, let's jump back into this.
Students, I see complacency. Right. I see not being aware of the situation and not taking these allegations seriously enough.
You know what's really bad for her? Apparently, a former assistant principal at the school, who's not there anymore, testified in front of the grand jury. What do you think the former assistant principal had to say?
Well, I would have to guess, and an educated guess would be that they saw something firsthand. That's why you're brought in front of the grand jury, as you know. And there must have been something that was important that assistant principal saw that led to the criminal charges against the principal. I mean, that assistant principal would have had a front row view of exactly what was going on.
I think it was only her and then a detective who testified in front of the grand jury. You don't need a full
That's all you need.
case. You only need, but I mean, that's pretty significant to get these charges. And Chris, I want to come back to you about what should have been done, but just give everybody kind of an idea of what we're talking about. The arrests of Stearns and Collins ignited outrage among students, parents, members of the St. Helens community, many of whom felt betrayed by the school's administration for allegedly ignoring or covering up this abuse. Wagner and St. Helens School District Superintendent Scott Stockwell, they were originally placed on administrative leave on November 15th pending further investigation. And what you had was frustrated parents who spoke at a board meeting held earlier this month, and they didn't hold back.
Families do not give us their students. They do not give us their children. They give us their babies. It is a sacred trust, and we have a moral obligation to honor it with reverence. That trust has been broken. The district has significant work ahead to repair relationships and rebuild trust.
And according to multiple students, they had reported Stearns and Collins.
Is anybody else sick of hearing that line? I'm just saying, every time this happens over and over again, 100 teachers just this school year, and we always hear this same line. We're so outraged. They have broken the trust. We're committed to keeping the kids safe. What are you going to do about it? Do you have any idea what to do about it? You can't just do a background check. We know that that's not going to solve anything because majority of predators have not yet been caught. There needs to be a deeper look into these people before they were allowed anywhere near our children. Maybe they need to have psychosexual evaluations. Maybe they've got to do something, right? Or start keeping their eyes open. Maybe here's an idea. Start holding seminars and conferences in the schools in all the districts that teach kids that any contact with them sexually from an adult is illegal and wrong. The school could cover their butts that way, right? They can say, hey, we taught it. We warned the kids. We told them it was wrong. And then so if we happen to miss something, hey, we tried. Now, that's one of the long-term goals for Protect Your Children Incorporated, is to get into the school system and start to teach these warnings, teach these alert them to the problem that's going on. And we're going to mention that it doesn't matter if it's a teacher, a principal, a custodian, or someone in the neighborhood, or any adult. It's dangerous and it's wrong, and they need to get help. But as we heard a couple weeks ago from a student, a high school student, he said they've never talked about it in his school. They don't even bring it up. So the school, they say we want to protect the kids, but what are they doing? Hiring one predator teacher after another? There's more that they can do, but they're not doing it, and they're not being forced to do it. Now, we can't expect the government to do crap. We know that. But, the Department of Education, they could mandate some kind of child sexual abuse prevention training or awareness to happen in these schools. There's a lot that can be done, but it doesn't seem like there's such a rush to do it. But we'll get these statements every time. Oh, it's wrong. We're saddened. They broke the trust, and we're going to work hard to repair it. But they're not doing anything.
To school officials as early as 2019, but their concerns were dismissed. Speaking at a school board meeting earlier this month, one student, now 17, said that Stearns had expressed inappropriate affection towards her when she was just 14 years old.
As a vulnerable 14-year-old girl, I didn't find that it was weird that he'd hug me, kiss me on the head, and tell me that he loved me.
And she said that when her mother complained to Principal Wagner, the principal refused to take action, even though the teacher's behavior made her uncomfortable.
My mom specifically made complaints about Mr. Stearns putting his hand around my neck as a vocal exercise. That, too, went swept under the rug.
Other students also shared stories of how they were allegedly targeted by Stearns and Collins. Many claimed that when they reported the misconduct to Wagner, their complaints were either ignored or minimized. Another student questioned how such abuse could have gone on for so long.
Why haven't you done anything to protect our kids? Protect me. People like me who go to the high school don't want to be around pedophiles.
And parents also came forward to voice their dismay at the district's handling of these allegations.
Our teachers and staff used to be the ones we trusted our children with, and now they are the least trusted. We have a lot of work to turn this around and right the ship.
And then you guys try to tell Doug to stop, bring up the past. It's not the past, it's still present. Our kids are still being victimized, and you guys are helping the criminals to victimize our children.
Our kids are in danger, and you're not doing something about it, then you are the danger.
Chris, just your reaction to the outrage and also the idea of how it was allowed to fester, but also what should have been done? How do you handle these types of allegations?
Well, the minute there's an allegation, it must be investigated right away. It's got to be reported to the higher-ups in the school system, and it's got to be reported immediately to law enforcement. Now, there are laws in place in most states where it says if an educator gets an allegation like this, a supervisor, like the principal here, they must report it. And at some point in the chain of command, it's got to get brought to law enforcement. And that didn't happen initially. It wasn't until this train was way down the tracks that this finally came to the attention of police. And you got to take this stuff seriously, because when you let it slide, look at what happened. These guys got away with it, allegedly, for a decade because nobody took the allegation seriously. And these kids had to live in fear of being targeted when they went to school every day. And what kind of an environment is that? It's horrible.
Do you find it weird or odd or different that it's multiple alleged predator teachers, not just one, but multiple in the same area?
And maybe I'm cynical because of what I see in our continuing investigations on True Blue or Takedown and all these other stories I've done over the years. It doesn't surprise me that two predators would have some sort of alliance and perhaps try to cover each other. We see this in these various investigations. They'll team up.
Or if you take the allegations as true, hey, if he's getting away with it, maybe I could get away with it.
And it incrementally, what happens in some of these cases when you're looking at predators, they have a fantasy. They see a target. I don't know if, pornography was involved in this, but we often see that in the mix, and they keep stepping and incrementally it becomes acceptable in their mind, and then they act. And that's what we saw in this case.
I want to get your reaction to the response of something. So in response to the community's anger and frustration, we had the acting superintendent, Dr. Steve Webb, who issued a statement, and he expressed the district's acknowledgement of the, quote, pain, disappointment, betrayal, fear, shame that has swept through the St. Helens community.
I understand that the community of St. Helens is hurting, anxious, and in many cases, angry. Many of you are outraged that the system failed to protect this community's children and that some adults allegedly failed to act when informed of misconduct.
Webb also said that the district has plans to address sexual abuse allegations moving forward, meaning reviewing policies on mandatory reporting and staff ethics. There's going to be an investigation and issuance of a report within 2 months. They'll be working with law enforcement. He's also going to be tasked with appointing an acting principal and hold listening sessions at each school, meet with community leaders. I wonder, is that an adequate response? Is that the only response available?
Well, it is the only response. You have to really dig into the institutional issues that exist within this school and potentially in the entire school district. So you have to break it down. You have to rebuild it, and you have to make sure that there is a mechanism for students and teachers to make these complaints. Because what you have now is a system where there was impunity in terms of these two teachers. So it is the only thing that can happen. And the good news here is that, much like the communities in which we do these predator stings, they become the safest communities in America.
Yeah,
for a period of time. That's going to be the same issue here, the same situation here in the school district, that there will be reform.
In your experience, how should teachers, administrators, what warning signs should they look out for? What are the warning signs?
Well, anytime that somebody is overly chummy with a student, a teacher-student, I mean, look, there's a rule going back many, many years. You only touch a student between here, and only if it's appropriate. And whether it's a coach or whether it's a teacher of any subject, there has to be an appropriate distance psychologically, because you're talking about an adult versus a child who's still very vulnerable. And yes, there are great teachers. We have all had them who you might have become friendly with, or might even been your coach and helped you play a sport better. But a teacher has a unique responsibility in our society, and that is to engage, to teach, to inspire, but also to create an appropriate distance so this relationship does not get inappropriate.
In your experience capturing predators like this, what are the challenges when they're teachers or members of a school district? Is it different?
We've seen teachers on numerous occasions show up in our investigations, and they claim to me that they would never do this with a student, even though they have students the same age as the child they're coming to see to sexually exploit in our sting. I don't believe them when they say that, because I think given the opportunity, they would act upon it.
Yeah. And I want to go back to something of the TikToker for a second. So this TikToker that we mentioned the previous episode, or before, Doug Weaver, seemed to play a pivotal role in getting this to law enforcement's attention. And he mentioned this email that Principal Wagner had sent out, in which she said, re-traumatization and revisiting past issues that have been addressed makes it difficult to move forward in a positive direction at a school community. Knowing what we know now and what she's charged with, what do you make of that statement?
I think they're trying to sweep it under the rug. I mean, they were trying to do the most expeditious thing possible and make it go away and make it all better. But they weren't going to go after or take any disciplinary action against these teachers. They hadn't reported it to law enforcement. It is outrageous that this situation went on as long as it did. Yeah. And thankfully now, better people are in charge.
Do you ever have the opportunity to speak to the parents or the victims themselves? And how do they recover from something like this?
Well, it takes some time, and each case is very individually specific. I get letters all the time from listeners of the podcast, Predators I've Caught, and there are all the time people who say, this happened to me. Thank you for doing this work. And through therapy and embracing, justice in this case, I've been able to get through it. But I can't tell you how many times, Jesse, my wife and I will be out to dinner someplace and somebody say, hey, can I talk to you for a minute? And they'll tell me the story about a teacher who acted inappropriately, about a situation in their own life, sometimes within the family. These are not always strangers, predators, and you know, thanking for what we do, but also just making me aware of how important this work is and how many survivors and victims are out there.
Well, you do great work. And, you know, I really appreciate you coming on to talk about this.
Anytime,
It's such a bizarre, scary case.
This is an extreme case, but
it really is.
You know, we see this in schools all the time, and parents have a role here, obviously, too, and they have to listen to the kids. And my mantra to parents is always, you have to create an environment where if something is going on with your child, they need to feel comfortable to come and talk to you, whether it's sextortion, whether it's an inappropriate approach from an adult online. And this happens not on the black web, not in these, you know, bizarre, extreme, sexually charged chat rooms. This happens on everyday social media.
And it's totally unrelated, but it sometimes takes these extreme prosecutions,
Absolutely.
like the school shooting cases where you charge the parents.
Yes.
It takes sometimes like this
to get people's attention and say, look, you cannot give a disturbed child a gun without any restrictions on it and feed his fantasy.
Yeah.
And you need to crack down. You can't let a school administrator, especially a principal in this case, who is the trusted leader of the school, they have a responsibility. And if they get an allegation like this, they must act. And I think they will from now on in Oregon.
Shocking charges, shocking development. If you want a little more Chris Hansen, because who doesn't want a little bit more Chris Hansen? True Blue, takedown on True Blue. Predators I've caught with Chris Hansen. And by the way, Chris, I don't think we ever say, like, what's your Twitter, what's your X handle? Where can
It's
everybody?
at Chris Hansen on X. It's official Chris Hansen on Instagram. TikTok is Have a Seat with Chris Hansen. And that's about it.
Love it. All right. Chris Hansen, good seeing you.
Thank you,
Thanks so
Jesse.
much.
Wow. It's just so much tonight. So much tonight. For those of you joining late, you did miss a lot. Anna, we're glad to see you. Glad you finally you got to join us. Excuse me. And there's a lot of stuff covered tonight. But once we're armed with the information that we have, it's our responsibility to get out there and share it. And I will be honest, on an average live stream podcast, we're getting about 3 to 5 shares. That's it, 3 to 5. There's the occasional one that boops up a little bit more. But we really need you guys to remember to come back to the page. On Facebook, it'll be listed. YouTube, it'll be there. Rumble, it'll be there. On X, it'll be there. Try to remember to come back afterwards, tonight or tomorrow, and click share and share that content. I mean, listen, we have to get this information out. Marie T is the assistant director, and she made a point before that you can help us get this word out. You know, if you can't help financially, we understand that. She made a point that none of us are paid here. This is all self-supported. We're supported by donations coming in from passionate protectors like yourself. You know, and if you can't do that, we understand that. But it doesn't cost anything to click share. It doesn't cost anything to click, you know, repost on X, right? A few different times and get the information out there. The more eyes that see it, the more kids are going to be protected and be aware. So we ask that you would please do that. Bryden, we're thank you for you coming along a few weeks back and bringing a whole bunch of people. You know, this is what it takes. You know, we're just a small organization on our little tiny corner speck of the web here, but we're trying to do our best to educate and raise awareness to this issue. This is pandemic level stuff here. And we can only do what we can do within the constraints that we have. A lot of that is financial because it does cost money to pay for the streaming programs. It costs money to edit the videos. It costs money to promote stuff on social media. It costs money to keep the lights on, okay? To keep the internet, high-speed internet going. There's a lot of bills, and right now it's all self-supported. We get a few donations here and there, which we're thankful for, but it's not nearly enough to really get the content out to people. So if you can help out with that, you can visit our website, protectyourchildren.org, click the donate tab on the donation page. Tax deductible. Hey, it comes off your taxes and you're really helping to protect kids. We know that right now, everybody and their mother seems to be asking for money, right? Whether it's Christian radio, whether it's the ASPCA on TV, everybody's got, Hey, it's Christmas time. Give. We understand that, right? Our work isn't just limited to Christmas. We bring you these shows every week, all year round, every day on social media, because this is a fight that doesn't stop. It never stops. And we need people to share the content, to subscribe. That does make a difference in the algorithm, and to please donate if you can. ProtectYourChildren.org is the website, ProtectYourChildren.org. I want to thank you, everybody, for being here this week. If you missed anything, there's a lot. The substitute teacher situation, the Nintendo, and the so-called Nintendo, Super Nintendo situation with the sexually explicit games and how they changed that around. That we covered. So much other stuff tonight. So check out the podcast. It'll be available shortly after the show ends. Until then, we ask that you stay focused, be nosy, check your kids' phones, and like Chris Hansen was saying, create an environment where your kids understand that you're not going to flip out and kill somebody if they ever touch them or hurt them, okay? Don't ever tell your kids that. Research has shown that kids will shut down with that. They'll be afraid to talk because they're afraid their parents are going to go do something and get in trouble. But instead, foster that environment where you sit down and you say, I will believe you. If there's any threats, I will protect you. None of this is your fault. We understand, and we're going to help you and protect you and keep you safe. You create that environment, and the kids may just come forward. But for the times that they don't, which unfortunately is a lot, you may be able to find out that something's happening on their phones because they're talking to their friends. They're messaging people. So you have to be involved and you have to be nosy. Right? Oh, my child's privacy. You know what? Those days are long gone, parents. The internet is not a private place anymore. It is absolutely crazy out there. So we have to do our part. But again, thank you all for being here. This is Chris Skelson, the Director Lead Teacher of Protect Your Children Incorporated. Website, protectyourchildren.org, protectyourchildren.org. You can find us on social media. We're on TikTok, Instagram, Facebook Threads, which, by the way, if you didn't see the Facebook Threads podcast from last week, please, was it last week or 2 weeks ago? Definitely check that out. Facebook Threads has become a haven for predators, and it is dangerous, and you're not going to believe how Meta is getting around saying that Threads is safe when it is really not. It's directing predators right to Instagram, connecting it right with kids in their area so they can be groomed and abused. Threads is a dangerous place. Check out that podcast. But in any case, we're on all our social media. You can find those links on our website, protectyourchildren.org. Bryden, everybody in the chat, Tammy, Flurg, Marie T, everybody out there, we appreciate you. You guys stay safe. And if you're in the Northeast area, there's some weird drone activity going on in New Jersey. You might ask why we posted that if some of you saw it. There's some really weird stuff going on up there. But in any case, it's just interesting to check out. 5 to 6 foot wide drones flying all over the state of New Jersey. Strange stuff going on these days, but we got to stay focused on the goal, and that is protecting our kids from predators online and in the community. So until next week, this is Chris with Protect Your Children Incorporated. Thanks for watching. Thanks for all your comments. Thanks for the active participation that you guys do on social media. We cannot do it without you. Stay safe and God bless.